There comes a moment in life, not with a crash, not with a scream, but with a soft and almost invisible sigh, when you realize that you've been tired for a very long time. Not the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix. Not the ache in your knees or the stiffness in your back. No, this is something deeper. A kind of soul weariness that builds over years, quietly, like dust settling in a room that no one ever opens. It's the heaviness that comes from always being the one who keeps the peace, the one who forgives first, the one who lets things go again and again, because it feels easier than speaking up, easier than shaking the ground. And yet, that ease comes at a cost you don't even realize you're paying until one day you look in the mirror and the reflection feels distant, like someone you used to know but can't quite name anymore. There is a kind of sorrow that lives in the hearts of those who have always tried to be good, those who stay quiet when words would burn, who laugh politely when the joke cuts too deep, who nod and smile even when their spirit is crumbling inside. For so long, you've been told that kindness means bending, that love means staying, that maturity means not making a fuss. But somewhere along the way, those ideas began to wear you down. And now, what was once a gentle nature has turned into a pattern of self-abandonment. What was once patience has become silence, and what was once love has been mistaken for the willingness to be overlooked. If this feels familiar, please know there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, this quiet discomfort you've been carrying may be the most honest part of you trying to surface. That subtle unease, the heaviness you can't explain, it's not weakness. It's not oversensitivity. It's not a problem to be solved. It is your inner wisdom finally speaking, and it's asking you to listen. You've reached a season of life where pretending no longer brings peace, where pleasing others no longer brings joy, and where the cost of ignoring your own needs feels too high. This is not a breakdown. This is an awakening. Today, we're not here to blame anyone or to reopen old wounds. We're here to gently shine a light on the quiet agreements we've made with pain, the ways we've learned to tolerate what was never meant to be ours. Because the truth is, we don't only suffer from what people do to us. We suffer from what we silently accept, from the boundaries we never learned to hold, from the moments we swallowed our voice just to keep the peace. And if we're not careful, these patterns settle into the very fabric of our days, shaping how we love, how we speak, and even how we see ourselves. So let this moment be a soft return, not a fight, not a rebellion, but a calm turning inward. Let us pause together, not to fix, but to understand, not to point fingers, but to see clearly. Over the next few moments, we'll walk through some of the subtle habits many of us carry, habits that seem harmless, even virtuous, but which quietly chip away at our spirit. And as we explore them, I invite you to listen, not just with your mind, but with your heart. There is no shame here, no judgment, only the gentle possibility that perhaps you've had enough. Enough of shrinking, enough of smiling through pain, enough of mistaking silence for peace. Today is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world asked you to forget. Let's begin. Part 1. Enduring too much for the sake of peace. There's a strange kind of exhaustion that grows not from hardship, but from quiet, constant compromise. It's the weariness of always choosing harmony over honesty, of smoothing every wrinkle in a room full of tension, of becoming so skilled at avoiding conflict that you forget how to stand your ground. Many people think that peace means silence, that being good means being agreeable, and that maturity means swallowing discomfort without a word. And yet something deep inside us knows there is a cost to always keeping the waters calm. I once met a woman in her early 70s, a retired school teacher named Elaine. She was graceful, soft-spoken, and the kind of person everyone seemed to like. At family gatherings, she would quietly prepare the meals, pick up the plates, and listen as others spoke over her. She rarely offered her own opinion, and often responded to even the most inconsiderate remarks with a smile and a gentle, "That's okay." But over time, you could see the sorrow settle in her eyes, like a river that had been dammed for too long. When I asked her why she always let things slide, she looked down, then said, almost in a whisper, "Because I was afraid of losing the love I had, even if it wasn't the love I needed." And there it was, the truth so many carry without words. The fear that if we speak up, we will be cast out. That if we say this hurts, someone will walk away. And so we endure, again and again, mistaking quiet endurance for wisdom, mistaking our silence for peace. But true peace, in the Buddhist sense, isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of clarity. It's not about pleasing others while betraying ourselves. It's about knowing where our boundaries lie and standing within them with compassion, both for ourselves and for those around us. The Buddha once taught that just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so, one should cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings, and that includes ourselves. We are not meant to be the dust beneath other people's feet. Compassion is not martyrdom. To love others deeply does not require abandoning who we are. Yet somewhere along the way, many of us, especially those raised to be polite, agreeable, and never too much, learned that our worth was tied to our ability to tolerate pain quietly. But what if enduring too much is not an act of strength, but a slow surrender of the self? What if every time we say it's fine when it's not, we are teaching the world that our needs don't matter? What if peace built on suppression is not peace at all, but a fragile silence waiting to crack? The path forward isn't loud or aggressive. It doesn't require us to become someone we're not. Rather, it invites us to return to what is already inside us: dignity, clarity, and self-respect. It asks us to speak when it matters, to pause when we're unsure, and to trust that we can love others without disappearing in the process. And perhaps the most tender truth of all, we are never too old to reclaim the parts of ourselves we once gave away. Not for love, not for peace, and certainly not for belonging. Because belonging that demands our silence isn't belonging at all, it's survival. So, if you've been the one who always kept the peace, who held your breath while others exhaled freely, know that your breath matters too, and this might be the moment to finally let it out. Part 2, smiling through subtle mockery. There's a kind of laughter that doesn't come from joy, a kind of smile that doesn't come from the heart. It's the smile we force when the joke is on us, when the comment stings, but we laugh anyway, not because it's funny, but because it's safer than being the one who can't take a joke. For many of us, especially as we grow older, we've mastered the art of laughing off discomfort. We've learned that to survive in certain rooms, we must shrink our dignity to fit in. And so we chuckle when our age is mocked, when our habits are teased, when our presence is dismissed as old-fashioned or overly sensitive. But beneath that laughter, something sacred is chipped away, bit by bit. I remember sitting with an elderly man named Harold at a family reunion. He was in his early 80s, a retired mechanic with rough hands and gentle eyes. As we talked, his grandson walked by and with a smirk said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Don't listen to Grandpa, he still thinks phones have wires." Everyone laughed. Harold laughed too, but not with his eyes. He looked at me afterward and said softly, "They think I don't get it, but I do. I laugh because I don't want to be a burden. But sometimes I wish they'd just see me, not laugh at me." That moment stayed with me, not because of its cruelty, but because of its commonness. This wasn't an attack. It wasn't malicious. It was just a joke. And yet, like a small stone tossed into a still pond, it disturbed something much deeper. Buddhism teaches us about right speech, that our words should be true, kind, and timely. But there's another layer that often goes unnoticed, the awareness of the impact our words carry, even when wrapped in humor. A joke, repeated often enough, becomes a belief. A laugh at someone's expense, masked in affection, can quietly carve out their sense of belonging. And when we become the target, especially if we allow it over and over, we begin to question our place in the world. We wonder, am I overreacting? Should I just lighten up? But the truth is, you shouldn't have to swallow humiliation to feel included. And yet, this happens all the time, especially to elders, especially to those who come from a generation where endurance was mistaken for virtue, where speaking up was seen as making a fuss. But there's a line between humility and erasure, between being easygoing and being dismissed. And when we allow mockery to stand unchecked, we're not keeping the peace, we're reinforcing a power that thrives on making others small. It's important to say this clearly. Your presence is not a punchline. Your experience, your memories, your voice, they matter. You do not have to laugh at yourself to be lovable. You do not have to shrink so others feel big. And you are not too sensitive for feeling the sting of words that were meant to wound beneath the surface. There is a phrase in the teachings, be mindful of what you entertain, for it becomes your nourishment. When we accept mockery and silence, we feed it, we allow it to grow, and over time, we begin to see ourselves through the lens of those jokes, smaller, sillier, somehow less than. But we are not less, not for growing older, not for remembering different times, not for speaking softly or choosing stillness over noise. So the next time laughter comes at your expense, pause, breathe, and if your heart tightens, that's not weakness, it's wisdom. Let that feeling guide you back to yourself, because you deserve spaces where your dignity is not up for debate. And peace, true peace, is never found in places where your soul has to flinch. Part 3. Doubting your own emotions. There's a quiet war that often begins not with harsh words, but with soft denials. A raised eyebrow, a subtle chuckle, a calmly spoken, "You're just imagining things," and before you know it, you begin to wonder, was I really wrong to feel that way? Did I make too much of it? Maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm just too emotional. This kind of self-questioning repeated over time becomes a habit, a dangerous one. Because when we start to distrust our own emotions, we begin to abandon ourselves from the inside out. It doesn't always come from a place of malice. Often it's from people we love, family, partners, old friends. They dismiss our pain, not because they want to hurt us, but because they're uncomfortable with what our feelings bring up in them. So they minimize, distract, or even turn it around. Why are you always so dramatic? You take things too personally, and in trying to keep the peace, we nod, we smile, we try to believe that maybe they're right. But deep down, something starts to break. I once spoke with a woman named Ruth, who had spent years trying to be the reasonable one in her marriage. Anytime she expressed hurt, her husband would tell her she was just too sensitive. "It's not that bad," he'd say. "You're blowing things out of proportion." Over time, she stopped saying anything at all, and by the time her children were grown, she confessed, "I don't even know what I feel anymore. I second-guess myself before the words even leave my mouth." She wasn't broken, she had just learned too well how to silence herself. In Buddhist teachings, we're reminded again and again to observe the mind, to become aware of how our thoughts and feelings arise, not to judge them, not to suppress them, but to see them clearly. The moment we begin to doubt our inner world, to deny our authentic reactions, we lose that clarity. And when clarity is lost, suffering multiplies. Doubting your feelings is like pulling up a flower by its roots, just because someone told you it wasn't really growing. The truth is, your emotions are signals, not threats. They are the body and mind whispering, "Something here needs your attention." And yet for so many of us, especially those raised to be polite, composed, or endlessly agreeable, emotions were never welcomed guests. They were inconveniences, signs of weakness, something to be managed, not listened to. But just as we wouldn't ignore pain in the body, we mustn't ignore pain in the heart. Emotional pain, when ignored, becomes confusion, and confusion, when repeated, becomes identity. You start living in a fog, unsure of what's real, what's yours, and what's been planted there by someone else's denial. This is where we must gently return to ourselves, to sit with our feelings without apology, to believe the inner voice that says, "That hurt me," even if no one else agrees. Because no one else walks in your shoes, no one else lives in your skin, and you were never meant to outsource your truth to someone else's comfort. The Buddha spoke of right view as the foundation of the path, to see clearly, not just the world, but also ourselves. And clarity begins with honoring what arises within us. You don't need permission to feel what you feel. You don't need to justify your sadness or explain away your hurt. You only need the courage to sit with it, breathe through it, and trust that your emotions, like all things, are part of the path, not obstacles on it. So if you've been taught to doubt yourself, to brush off the weight in your chest or the tears in your eyes, pause, not to question yourself again, but to finally believe yourself. Your feelings are not flaws. They are sacred visitors, asking you to come home. Part 4. Emotionally dismissing yourself and others. Sometimes the deepest wounds are not the ones we receive from others, but the ones we inflict upon ourselves, quietly, unconsciously, and far too often in the name of keeping things simple. Emotional dismissal doesn't always look cruel. In fact, it often wears a mask of logic. We tell ourselves, "It's not a big deal," or "I shouldn't feel this way." We downplay our grief, suppress our anger, brush away sadness like dust on a table. And the older we get, the more skilled we become at this, believing somehow that to feel deeply is to be weak or dramatic or ungrateful for all we have. But just because something is common doesn't mean it's harmless. Over time, the practice of ignoring or invalidating our emotions becomes a quiet form of self-abandonment. It's like living in a house where the lights are always dimmed, where no room is ever fully illuminated, because we've convinced ourselves it's better not to see too clearly. And when that becomes our normal, something inside us begins to fade. Joy becomes muted, sadness becomes shame, and our capacity to feel fully both the beautiful and the difficult shrinks into a narrow corridor of numbness. I remember a conversation with an elderly gentleman named Thomas, a soft-spoken man who had survived great loss in his life. When asked about his pain, he would simply wave his hand and say, "That was a long time ago, no use dwelling." But one evening, as we sat quietly in his garden watching the wind move through the trees, he whispered, almost to himself, "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had just let myself grieve, not move on so quickly, not pretend I was okay before I truly was." His voice cracked, not from weakness, but from years of emotion locked behind walls too carefully built. And in that moment, it became clear: when we bury what aches, we also bury what's alive. Buddhism teaches us that emotions are not enemies. They are part of the fabric of being human. Joy and sorrow, love and loss. They arise and pass like clouds drifting across the sky. When we judge them, when we suppress or dismiss them, we interrupt the natural flow of our inner life. The Buddha spoke of mindfulness as the key to liberation, not mindfulness that analyzes or explains, but mindfulness that simply notices. This is sadness, this is longing, this is fear. Not to indulge it, but to acknowledge it, to allow it the space to be seen and softened by our presence. But many of us were never taught to sit with our feelings. We were taught to soldier on, to be strong, to put on a brave face. And so we learned, in subtle and not so subtle ways, that our feelings were too much, too inconvenient, too messy. We internalized the message that our inner world was best left unspoken. And worse, we sometimes pass that same message on to others, cutting off their vulnerability with our discomfort, silencing their pain with well-meaning advice, or telling them to look on the bright side, when what they truly need is to be held in the dark. But healing begins where honesty begins, and honesty begins with permission. Permission to feel what we feel, to not rush to fix or explain or justify, just to feel. When we offer that to ourselves, we naturally begin to offer it to others, and something softens in the space between us. We become less afraid of emotion, more willing to meet one another where we truly are. So if you find yourself brushing away your own feelings, or those of someone you love, pause, breathe, ask gently, what am I afraid I'll feel if I let this emotion speak? And then listen, not to fix, not to figure out, but to honor. Because in the stillness of that listening, we begin to remember feeling is not a flaw, it is a sacred capacity. And when we allow ourselves to feel fully, we begin to live fully once again. Part 5. Silent contempt. The pain of being ignored. Sometimes what hurts the most isn't what's said, it's what's left unsaid. It isn't the shouted word or the slammed door, it's the silence that follows, heavy and cold, like a room where all the warmth has been drained. There is a kind of silence that doesn't soothe, but wounds. A silence that speaks volumes by saying nothing at all. And if you've ever sat across from someone you love and felt invisible, then you already know how deeply that kind of absence can echo inside. Contempt isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it comes in the form of a glance that avoids you, a phone that never rings, a birthday forgotten, a conversation that ends before it begins. It's in the quiet dismissals, the refusal to engage, the way someone stops meeting you in the shared space of relationship, not with cruelty, but with distance. And the most confusing part is that, to the outside world, everything looks fine. No one sees bruises, no one hears insults. But inside, something is breaking. Because being ignored, being deliberately unseen, cuts into our deepest human need, the need to matter. I once sat beside a woman named Lydia, a widow in her late 70s, who lived with her adult son and his family. They're kind, she told me. They give me food, a place to sleep, but some days it's like I don't exist. Her voice trembled. They talk around me, make plans without asking. They don't mean harm, but I feel like a ghost in my own home. And I could feel in her words what so many quietly endure, a sense of being tolerated but not included, present but not truly seen. The Buddha spoke of right mindfulness as a path to freedom, not only from suffering but from indifference. To be mindful of ourselves, yes, but also of others. To see clearly, to listen deeply, to respond from the heart. Indifference, on the other hand, is a form of spiritual violence. It strips the soul of connection, makes love feel conditional, and trains us to believe that our presence is burdensome. When we are consistently met with silence, not the peaceful kind, but the punishing kind, we start to question our worth. We begin to shrink. We stop sharing our thoughts. We stop asking for what we need. We stop showing up as ourselves. And in doing so, we begin to disappear. First emotionally, then spiritually. It's a kind of slow fading that's hard to name, but unmistakable once you've lived it. But here's the truth, whispered gently. You were never meant to be background noise in someone else's life. Your presence is not optional, and your soul, regardless of who chooses to acknowledge it, remains whole and radiant beneath the silence. The work, then, is not just to hope others will see us. It is to keep seeing ourselves. There is power in recognizing that the way someone treats you in silence says more about them than about your worth. And there is peace in stepping back from places where you are not met with kindness, not out of anger, not from bitterness, but from a deep respect for your own sacredness. Buddhism teaches us that compassion must include ourselves, that we cannot pour love into vessels that refuse to receive it, and that sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do is to stop waiting for acknowledgement and begin offering it to ourselves. So if you've been carrying the weight of someone's silence, let this be your reminder. You are worthy of being seen, heard, and embraced, not someday, but now. And if you've grown used to disappearing, this may be the moment you begin to return to your voice, to your heart, to the life that still wants you fully in it. Part 6. Wearing self-sacrifice as a badge of worth. We're often taught from an early age that love is proven through sacrifice, that to be a good mother, a loyal partner, a devoted friend, means putting yourself last, that the more you give up, the more valuable you become. And so we grow into adults who say yes when we mean no, who cancel our own needs to make room for someone else's comfort, who equate exhaustion with goodness and silence with strength. Over time, it becomes a quiet identity. This belief that to matter, we must disappear just enough to make others feel whole. But slowly, almost without realizing it, a shift happens. What begins as generosity becomes a habit of self-erasure, and what was once called kindness starts to feel like a quiet betrayal of our own soul. We become so practiced at minimizing ourselves that we forget how to feel joy without guilt or rest without justification. We become tired in ways we cannot name. Tired, not from doing too much, but from being too little in our own lives. I remember speaking with a retired nurse named Darlene, a woman who had spent her whole life caring for others, her husband, her children, her patients, her church. All had received the very best of her. But now, in her late 60s, living alone in a small apartment, she whispered something I'll never forget. I gave everything I had, and now I don't know what's left for me. She didn't say it bitterly. There was no resentment in her voice, only a deep, aching question. When do I get to come back to myself? In the Dhammapada, the Buddha reminds us that if you hold yourself dear, then guard yourself well. But in a world that praises martyrdom and calls burnout noble, the teaching can feel radical, because true compassion is not about depletion, it is about balance. We are not called to pour until we are empty, but to give from a place of inner fullness. We are not asked to vanish in the name of love, but to remain whole as we walk alongside others with care. And yet so many of us have mistaken self-neglect for virtue. We've been told that to need is selfish, that to rest is lazy, that to say, I matter too, is somehow indulgent. But the Dharma teaches that all beings, including you, are worthy of tenderness, that self-compassion is not selfishness. It is the soil from which all other compassion grows. So perhaps it is time to gently ask, has my giving become a way to avoid being with myself? Have I worn sacrifice like armor, afraid of what might surface if I laid it down? And most of all, when did I begin to believe that love meant disappearing? If you've been carrying this story, this quiet devotion that leaves no space for your own breath, let today be a turning point, not to stop giving, but to give differently, not from obligation, but from choice, not from fear of being unlovable, but from the deep truth that you already are. You don't need to earn your place in the world through exhaustion. You don't need to prove your value by how little you ask for. Your presence here, your aliveness, your very breath, that is enough. And the moment you start treating yourself with the same reverence you've offered everyone else, something inside you begins to rise again, gently, steadily, like light returning after a long winter. Part 7. Accepting disrespect to avoid loneliness. There are moments in life when the fear of being alone whispers louder than our sense of worth. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply tugs at us gently until we begin to make small compromises that at first feel like survival. We tolerate the cold silence, the offhand insults, the disregard of our feelings, not because we're weak, but because we're afraid. Afraid that if we speak up, we'll be left behind. That if we ask for respect, we'll be labeled difficult. That if we walk away, we'll be walking into emptiness. And so, without fully realizing it, many of us begin to settle. We stay in friendships that drain us. We hold on to family ties that harm more than they heal. We let others interrupt, talk over, or ignore us, not because we don't notice, but because we're trying so hard not to be alone. And over time, these tiny moments of disrespect pile up like stones in our pockets. We carry them everywhere, smiling through dinners, nodding through conversations, pretending it doesn't matter, but it does. It always has. A woman I once spoke with, named Gloria, put it this way: at some point, I realized I was clinging to people who made me feel invisible, just so I wouldn't have to eat dinner alone. She looked at me with quiet tears and said, "But now I sit at the table by myself, and I talk to the part of me that I left behind for so long." And in that moment, you could see it. She was still healing, yes, but she was whole. She had chosen self-respect over shallow belonging, and there was power in that. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, but we often forget that attachment isn't just to people, it's to identities, roles, stories. The story that we must accept crumbs to avoid emptiness. The story that love requires endurance, even when it wounds. But what if that's not true? What if loneliness is not the enemy we've made it out to be? What if sometimes it is the gateway to our deepest relationship, the one we have with ourselves? Because there is a kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who don't truly see you. And there is a kind of peace that arises when you sit quietly in your own company and feel for the first time in a long while that you are enough. The Dharma reminds us, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. In the same way, better than a room full of shallow connection is a single moment of true self-respect. We were never meant to buy acceptance at the cost of our own soul. We were never meant to beg for inclusion while silencing our needs. If you have been enduring relationships that leave you feeling small, forgotten, or disrespected, this is your gentle invitation not to burn bridges, not to harden your heart, but to remember who you are. To understand that the longing to be loved is human, but you do not have to trade your dignity to meet it. You are allowed to walk away from what hurts, even if it leaves you walking alone for a while. Because sometimes solitude is not loneliness. Sometimes it is sacred space, a return to your own breath, your own truth, your own quiet wisdom. And perhaps in that space, you will find the kind of companionship that no one can take from you. The unwavering friendship of your own soul. Conclusion. The moment of return. We've walked together through tender terrain, through the quiet places where our dignity was traded for belonging, where our voice was silenced to keep the peace, and where our kindness became a disguise for self-erasure. And yet, this journey was never about pointing fingers. It wasn't about blame or bitterness. It was about seeing clearly, seeing gently, seeing honestly. Because the moment we begin to truly see what we've allowed, what we've endured, and how far we've drifted from ourselves, that is the moment the healing begins. Each of the 7 silent habits we explored today, enduring too much, laughing through pain, doubting your emotions, dismissing your truth, absorbing contempt, sacrificing yourself, and staying where you are not respected. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of survival. They are patterns we learned to protect ourselves. But the path of awakening asks something else of us now, not to survive, but to return. To come back to the center of who we are, not with judgment, but with compassion. So now I invite you to place your hand over your heart, gently, not to fix anything, not to force anything, simply to feel, to listen, to ask softly, am I still living in alignment with myself? And if the answer is no, not fully, not anymore, then know this: it's not too late to come back. If there is something in you now that you feel ready to release, let it go like a leaf floating down a gentle stream. You don't need anger to let go. You don't need a fight. Just clarity, just breath, just the quiet, knowing that you deserve more than tolerating a life that dims your spirit. You deserve presence, you deserve kindness, and above all, you deserve to feel whole in your own skin. And if you've forgotten that you are allowed to live fully, not just exist, not just endure, but live, then let this video be your reminder. Let this moment be a turning point, a soft returning to the truth that was always within you. Here on Quiet Wisdom, we create these spaces of reflection and healing for those who are ready to walk home to themselves. So if this message touched something true in you, I invite you gently, without pressure, to subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but for you. Because each video is crafted to be a lantern on the path back to presence, to peace, and to self-respect. And now, as we end this reflection, may you carry with you not just the words, but the stillness between them. May you walk through your days with a little more clarity, a little more softness, and a lot more courage. Until we meet again, may you find peace, not at the end of the path, but in every step you take.